I shared half my meal. The alien princess sat beside me and whispered, "You're different." HFY Stories, the twin suns were setting behind the rocky hills of Sierra. Dust swirled around the starport, caught in the small gusts of wind that passed over the metal rooftops. The world was quiet, except for the occasional hum of hovering cargo ships landing and taking off. Jace Calhorn adjusted the wide brim of his dusty hat and stepped into the cantina. It smelled of roasted beans, sizzling protein patties, and the faint tang of recycled air. He always liked this place. The cantina was small, crowded with travelers and wanderers from many worlds, yet it had a warm, familiar feel. He walked toward the far corner where a wooden table with a few scratches and burn marks waited for him. He placed his worn satchel on the bench beside him and took out a small packet of reheated food. It wasn't much, just some grilled protein cubes and a side of soft, bread-like slices. Not fancy, but enough to fill his stomach after a long ride through the asteroid trails. Jace was just about to take a bite when the entrance door opened again. A soft chime echoed through the cantina. For a moment he didn't look up. Then a strange light caught his eye. The figure standing in the doorway was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly, like liquid silver under the cantina's lights. She was tall and elegant, with flowing garments that seemed to float even when the air was still. Her eyes were large, glowing slightly in violet, and her gaze scanned the room with quiet curiosity. For a moment the cantina went still, as if everyone had noticed her presence at once. Jace's stomach tightened, not out of fear, but from surprise. Most people in this sector wouldn't dare walk into a place like Sierra, 9 dressed so differently. Only someone with confidence or perhaps authority could. She moved toward the counter first, speaking in soft tones to the bartender. Jace didn't catch her words, but he saw the bartender nod and bow slightly. Whatever she wanted, it seemed important. Then she turned her eyes toward the corner where Jace was sitting. Time seemed to slow. Her gaze landed on him, not with suspicion or command, but with something curious and gentle. It was as if she could see past the dust on his boots, past the sweat on his brow, and straight to who he was. Without hesitation, she walked over and slipped onto the bench across from him. Jace blinked. "You're different," she said in a voice so soft that only he could hear it. He swallowed his bite and looked at her. "Different how?" he asked, half joking, half nervous. Her violet eyes met his, serious but not intimidating. "You see, you notice small things that others miss, and you are kind. That is rare where I come from." Jace scratched his head. He had traveled through hundreds of spaceports, met hundreds of people, and he had never had someone talk to him like this. Especially someone who looked like a princess from another galaxy. "Well," he said finally, "I've always believed everyone deserves a fair deal, and maybe a shared meal." He held up his plate. Her lips curved into a small smile. "A shared meal?" she asked, tilting her head. Jace pushed half of his food across the table. "If you want it," he said. "It's not much, but it's honest." She accepted it without hesitation. As she tasted the food, her expression softened. "It is good." Simple, yet comforting. They sat together, eating in quiet companionship for a few moments. The cantina's patrons had returned to their own conversations, some stealing glances at the unusual pair, but the princess, Lyra, as she later introduced herself, seemed completely at ease. "Where are you from?" Jace asked, curiosity winning over politeness. "I am from the star kingdom of Vera," she said, a hint of hesitation in her voice. "It is far from here, beyond the Andros cluster. I travel alone sometimes to see the lives of people outside my court." Jace whistled softly. "That's a long way. You must be brave to come here, alone, to a place like Sierra." 9, she shrugged lightly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I am curious. Curiosity is allowed for some humans, isn't it?" She smiled faintly, teasing him. Jace chuckled. "Yeah, curiosity's allowed, as long as it doesn't get you eaten by a sandworm or mugged by space pirates." Her smile widened at the joke, and for a moment the cantina seemed smaller, warmer and friendlier. Two travelers from entirely different worlds, sharing food and conversation as though the galaxy had shrunk just for them. As they continued talking, Lyra leaned slightly closer, whispering, "You have a way of making people feel seen, even strangers, even me." Jace felt a warmth in his chest. Compliments from anyone were rare, but from a princess who could command fleets and kingdoms? It was almost unbelievable. "Well, I figure it's better to notice than ignore," he said simply. At that moment, a small commotion arose at the far end of the cantina. A group of rowdy travelers tried to push past some patrons, knocking over trays and bumping chairs. Normally this would have been trouble, But Jace didn't move with anger or weapons drawn. Instead, he gently stood, moved to the side, and gestured for everyone to step back. Using his calm voice and measured actions, he helped everyone avoid harm. Lyra watched silently, impressed. "You don't fight like others," she whispered. "You solve problems without hurting anyone." Jace smiled, shrugging modestly. "I've learned a few tricks over the years. You don't need fists to handle trouble. You need brains, patience, and a little luck." The group quieted down, muttering apologies, and left without further incident. Patrons returned to their tables, some nodding at Jace in silent thanks. Lyra's eyes sparkled as she watched him. "You are different," she said again softly. "Most people I meet only see rank, power, or fear. You see, people?" Jace looked down at his plate, then back at her. "Maybe that's all we humans really have to offer sometimes. Kindness and honesty." The two continued to talk late into the evening. Liara asked about the trails between asteroids, about cargo runs, about life on planets most people never noticed. Jace shared stories of distant moons, trading with miners, navigating solar storms, and caring for his small crew of mechanical companions. She listened intently, her face reflecting wonder and amusement. For every story he told, she had 100 questions, not out of nosiness, but out of fascination for the world he lived in. Eventually, the cantina started to empty, and the twin suns had disappeared completely behind the horizon. The room grew quiet except for the soft hum of the hovering ceiling lights. "I suppose I should leave soon," Liara said, a hint of sadness in her voice. "I cannot stay too long away from my people, but," she paused, looking directly at Jace, "I have not met anyone like you before, and that is worth remembering." Jace nodded, feeling a strange mixture of pride and humility. "And I haven't met anyone like you. Not even in my wildest stories." She smiled and stood, her shimmering figure moving gracefully toward the door. Then she turned back, looking at him one last time. "I will return," she whispered. "I want to learn more, if you will let me." Jace's heart skipped a beat. "I'll save you a seat," he said simply, "and maybe another half of my meal." With a small bow, Lara disappeared into the night. The door chime echoed softly behind her, leaving Jace alone with his thoughts in the quiet cantina. He stared at the half-empty plate in front of him and smiled. For the first time in a long time, he felt like maybe the galaxy was a little smaller and a little kinder than he had thought. And somewhere in the dark, twin suns rising over the horizon on distant planets, the princess thought the same thing. The next morning, the twin suns of Sierra S's, 9 rose slowly over the jagged desert hills, casting long shadows across the starport. Jace Calhorn sat on the edge of his ship, a small but sturdy vessel called the Solar Wrangler, cleaning the smudges off the control panel and checking the fuel cells. The cantina from the night before felt like a distant memory, but he could not forget the violet-eyed princess who had quietly shared his meal. The soft sound of wings, well, more like a faint hum of hovering energy, made him glance up. Lyra was standing beside the ship, her cloak flowing in the morning wind. She had returned. "I thought I might find you here," she said, smiling. "You said you'd save me a seat. I brought curiosity with me," Jace laughed. "You brought curiosity and got here early. Good timing, too. We're heading out in a few minutes." Liara's eyes sparkled. "Lead the way." They climbed aboard the Solar Wrangler together. Inside, the small cabin smelled faintly of oil and roasted protein. The ship had seen better days, but Jace kept it clean and well-maintained. He flicked a few switches, the control panel glowing to life with soft blue light. "I've never ridden a human ship before," Liara said, looking around. "It feels alive," Jace chuckled. "Most of them do. Ships have personalities if you pay attention. This one's stubborn but loyal." With a gentle hum, the ship lifted off, leaving the desert world below. Sierra, 9 became smaller and smaller, a patchwork of rocks and sand under the twin suns. Liara leaned against the viewport, marveling at the vastness of space. "Where are we going first?" she asked. "Somewhere quiet," Jace replied. "I want to show you life beyond palace walls. Real people, real struggles, but also real kindness." Liara's eyes brightened. She had never met anyone who talked about life in such simple yet thoughtful terms. The first stop was a small mining station on Syndral 5, a moon with red sand and metal-rich hills. Miners worked tirelessly, extracting crystals that powered distant star colonies. The station was noisy, filled with machinery, and smelled strongly of metal and dust. Jace led Lyra through the station, introducing her to the workers. At first, some of them stared, unsure how to react to a royal visitor. Liara simply smiled and nodded, letting her presence be gentle rather than commanding. One of the miners, a tall human with soot on his face, approached her. "You're the princess," he said cautiously. "Why are you here?" Liara knelt slightly so she was closer to the man's level. "I wanted to see your world," she said softly. "Not from a starship, not from a palace, but as it truly is." The miner blinked, surprised by her honesty. "That's rare," he admitted. "Most people only see what they want to see." Jay smiled quietly at her side. Lara's presence was changing people already. They moved through the station, learning about the miners' lives, their tools, and the small joys they found despite hard work. Liara laughed when a robotic loader dropped a crate and it bounced harmlessly across the floor. "They are clever machines," she said, delight in her voice.
Jace nodded.
"Yep, and sometimes stubborn, kind of like their operators." As the sun on Sindral 5 began to set, painting the red dust in gold and purple, Liara and Jace sat outside the station, sharing a simple meal they had bought from the station's kitchen. Bread, protein cubes, and a small fruit-like substance from a local plant. "You eat simply," Liara observed, "and yet it feels peaceful." Jace shrugged. "A good meal doesn't need to be fancy. It needs to be shared." He passed half of his food to her. She smiled, and the gesture felt natural, almost like a ritual between friends. "You are right," she said. "There is a warmth in simple things. I rarely feel warmth in my world." The two sat in comfortable silence, watching the twin moons rise above the horizon. Lyra tilted her head and asked softly, "Why do you wander so far from your home?" Jace considered this. "I like to see things for myself. Stars, planets, people, every place is different, and every person has a story. Life is short, and there's a lot to learn if you look carefully." Liara listened, her violet eyes reflecting the twin moons. "You notice small details," she said quietly. You see people, not titles. You see life as it is." Jace laughed lightly. "Maybe. Or maybe I just like sharing a meal and a story. That's enough for me." The next morning, they continued their journey through the stars. Jace steered the Solar Wrangler through asteroid belts that glowed softly in the sunlight of distant stars. Liara watched, fascinated, as the ship weaved between giant rocks, her fingers brushing the glowing controls with awe. "Flying is different from observing," Jace said, noticing her excitement. "You can read the stars in a new way when you're out here. The galaxy isn't just beautiful, it's alive." Liara's face lit up. "Alive? Yes, I never thought of it that way. In the palace, everything is planned and fixed. Here, it moves, changes, and surprises you." They spent hours sharing stories. Jace told her about the time he rescued a lost cargo drone from a meteor storm, about a colony that grew flowers in space soil, and about a mischievous robotic companion named Sprocket who liked to hide tools. Liara responded with tales of distant planets, royal ceremonies, and the strange customs of her people. "Your life is so structured," Jace observed. "I can see why you wanted to leave it, even for a short time." Liara nodded, thoughtful. "Structure has its comforts, but it also cages you. Out here, I feel free and safe, in a way I never felt in the palace." By evening, they approached a small, forgotten planet, covered in golden grasslands and shallow lakes that reflected the sky like mirrors. It was quiet, untouched, and perfect for rest. They landed the Solar Wrangler near a cluster of rocks, where the air was cool and clean. Sitting outside again, they shared another simple meal. Liara carefully unwrapped some of the provisions Jace had brought, and she tasted them with delight. "You really know how to make simple food feel special," she said, smiling. Jace shrugged. "It's about the company, not the food." They laughed, and the sound echoed across the empty plains of the planet. For the first time in her life, Liara felt as if she could be herself, without duty, without ceremony, without expectation. And for Jace, sharing these quiet moments with someone so extraordinary felt natural, as if they had known each other far longer than a single day. As night fell, stars glittering in every direction, Liara leaned back and whispered, "I have never felt so understood." Jace turned to her, smiling. Maybe that's what a shared meal does. Or maybe it's just who we are when we notice each other. She laughed softly. "Then you are a rare human indeed." They sat together under the stars, talking until sleep pulled them into quiet dreams. And though they did not yet speak of the future, a gentle understanding had grown between them, a bond formed not from adventure or danger, but from kindness, curiosity, and shared moments of peace. The galaxy outside the Golden Plains was vast, full of unknown planets and countless people. But here, in the quiet of a forgotten world, two travelers from different worlds shared stories, laughter, and meals, learning that connection could exist anywhere, even among the stars. And so their journey continued, not for fame or glory, but for the simple magic of seeing and being seen. The Solar Wrangler glided silently through the deep blue stretches of space. Stars streaked past in long lines of white and gold, leaving trails of light in the cabin as the ship cut through the void. Jace Calhorn sat at the helm, his hands steady on the controls, while Liara Vera pressed her hands to the viewport, eyes wide with awe. "This is incredible," she whispered. "It's like the sky itself is moving beneath us." Jace smiled. "Out here, the stars are alive. You can feel the flow of the galaxy, if you know how to watch. Most people never notice it. They're too busy looking at maps or worrying about schedules." Liara tilted her head, watching the distant clusters of nebulae glowing in soft purple and green. "I never thought of space that way. At the palace, everything is measured, planned, controlled. Out here, it's free. It changes. It surprises you." Jace chuckled. "That's the best part. The galaxy has its own rhythm. You just have to keep up." Their first stop was Rindor Station, a floating outpost that orbited a small green planet. The station was built for travelers, full of shops and repair docks, and filled with the hum of energy engines and chatter from aliens and humans alike. Jace guided the Solar Wrangler to a docking bay, landing gently. Liara leaned forward, peering out the window as the doors opened to the bustling station. "You really travel to the forgotten corners of space," she said. "Not the shining capitals, not the famous trade hubs, but the small, hidden places where people live their real lives." Jace nodded. "That's where the stories are. The grand palaces and capitals are shiny, but they don't show you life. People do. Their kindness, their mistakes, their small joys, that's what makes a galaxy worth exploring." Liara smiled quietly. "Then I am lucky to have come with you." The station had a small market, and the two wandered between stalls selling colorful fruits, spices, and gadgets of every kind. Liara reached for a glowing crystal orb that hummed softly in her hand. "What is this?" she asked. A memory orb," Jace explained. "You can store a moment in it and play it back later. Some traders here make them as keepsakes. I've got a few myself." Liara turned it over, mesmerized by the tiny flickers of light inside. "Humans are clever," she said softly, "and I've never seen such simple beauty used in such a way." As they continued through the market, they heard laughter coming from the other side of the station. Curious, Liara tugged Jace's sleeve, and they approached a small square where children and young aliens were playing a game. It involved small hovering discs that darted in the air, glowing like tiny stars. "They're having so much fun," Liara whispered. "Even the youngest are curious and inventive." Jace knelt beside the children, showing them a few tricks with the discs, and Liara laughed as the game became more chaotic and joyful. She realized then that curiosity and play were universal. They existed across all species, all planets. As night fell over Rindor Station, the two returned to the Solar Wrangler. Jace guided it out of the station, leaving the glowing planet behind. Liara watched in silence as stars stretched into lines and comets danced along distant orbits. "I feel peaceful," she admitted. "Being with you, seeing these places, it's unlike anything I imagined. I thought I would always feel trapped by duty, by expectation. But here, I feel like I belong somewhere, not because of a title, but because I can be myself." Jace smiled, glancing at her. "That's the thing about traveling. The galaxy is huge, but it doesn't care about your rank. Out here, everyone starts equal. You notice people, you respect them, and that's all that matters." Liara nodded, her violet eyes reflecting distant stars. "You've shown me something I never expected to find outside my palace. Kindness, honesty, friendship. You see people. You see life, and it makes everything different." Jace chuckled. "It's just how I live, but I'm glad it's making a difference for you." The next day, they encountered a strange asteroid field. Giant rocks, some glowing faintly with crystalline veins, floated lazily through the void. Jace's hands moved smoothly across the controls, adjusting the ship's trajectory as Lyra watched. "Careful," she said, leaning forward. "Those look dangerous." They are, Jace replied, but danger doesn't always mean harm. You just need to be patient, watch carefully, and adjust when necessary. Liara observed him silently as he guided the Solar Wrangler between massive asteroids. Some of the rocks glimmered with colors she had never seen before, pale blues and golds, and she felt a strange wonder rise inside her. You see beauty in things others might call obstacles, she said softly. Jace glanced at her. Yeah, life throws rocks at everyone. The trick is noticing which ones are worth dodging and which ones are worth admiring. Liara laughed quietly. You always have a way with words, Jace. It's comforting. That night, they landed on a quiet planet with rolling fields of lavender and soft streams that reflected twin moons in the sky. They gathered near the water and shared a meal Jace had packed. Liara tried the simple bread and cubes of protein, savoring each bite. Every time we eat together, she said softly, I feel closer to understanding you, and maybe even myself. I never thought sharing food could feel this special. Jace shrugged. It's not about the food. It's about the time we spend, about noticing each other. That's what makes a meal memorable. Liara smiled, a gentle glow on her face. You notice so many things, not just about people, but about life. I feel like I am seeing the galaxy for the first time through your eyes. Jace laughed softly. Then you're lucky. I've got a good view. The two sat under the twin moons, watching as small creatures glided across the lavender fields. Liara leaned slightly toward him, her hand brushing his. No one has ever treated me like this, she said quietly. Not a princess, not a diplomat, not anyone. You see me as me, and it feels wonderful. Jace smiled, feeling warmth in his chest. I see the person in front of me. That's enough for me. As they drifted off to sleep under the stars, the galaxy outside seemed endless and full of promise. Liara felt her heart expand with new understanding, while Jace felt grateful for her presence. Together they had learned that travel was not just about seeing new planets or stars. It was about connecting, learning, and sharing. And though neither spoke of the future, both understood that this journey would change them. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders, and perhaps even more wonders awaited them as long as they traveled together. They would face new planets, new discoveries, and challenges that would test their patience and cleverness. But for now, they simply rested, content in the quiet understanding that friendship, curiosity, and kindness were the strongest guides across the stars. And somewhere deep in the endless stretch of space, the twin moons of their resting planet reflected their hopes, a quiet reminder that connection could be found anywhere, even in the lonely reaches of the galaxy. The Solar Wrangler drifted through the endless black of space, the soft hum of its engines echoing in the small cabin. Stars stretched across the void like rivers of silver, and distant nebulae painted faint colors against the darkness. Jace Calhorn sat at the controls, hands steady, eyes focused. Beside him, Liara Vera leaned against the viewport, her violet eyes wide with awe. This is amazing, she whispered. It feels like the universe is alive. Jace glanced at her and smiled. That's the thing about space. It's not just empty. Every star, every planet, even the dust between them, it all moves, changes, tells a story. You just need to notice it. Lyra's gaze softened as she stared at the streaks of light beyond the ship. I've never seen anything like this. On my home planet, everything is ordered, planned, perfect. Out here, it's beautiful because it's unpredictable. Exactly, Jace said. The galaxy doesn't care about titles or rank. It just exists. And if you pay attention, it teaches you things. Their first stop was a small space station, orbiting a green-blue planet called Rindor Prime. The station was a hub for travelers and traders, buzzing with life. Ships of all shapes and sizes floated at the docks, and robots and humans moved in organized chaos. Jace guided the Solar Wrangler into a docking bay. Lyra pressed her hands to the viewport, watching the activity. You really explore the quiet corners of space, she said. Not the shining capitals, not the famous trade hubs, but the places where people live their real lives. That's where the stories are, Jace replied. Palaces are beautiful, but they don't show the lives of people who work, laugh, and struggle. That's where the magic is. Liara's lips curved into a soft smile. Then I am lucky to have come with you. They stepped out into the station, where the air hummed with activity. Market stalls lined the corridors, selling colorful fruits, spices, and simple tools. Lara was fascinated by everything. The glow of some alien fruits, the way children ran past playing small hover games, the subtle sounds of distant machinery. "This place feels alive," she said quietly. "So different from my palace, where everything is controlled and predictable." Jace laughed. "Life is messy. That's what makes it interesting." They wandered through the market together. Liara reached out to touch a small crystal orb that glowed faintly. "What is this?" she asked. "Memory orb," Jace explained. "You can store a moment in it and watch it later. People use them to remember something important, or just beautiful." Liara held it carefully, mesmerized. Humans and their cleverness never ceased to amaze me. Later they found a quiet corner of the station to share a meal. Jace unpacked a small bundle of food, bread, protein cubes, and a sweet fruit from Sierra. Lyra watched him eat, then took a small portion. "It's simple," she said, "but it tastes warm." "Comforting." Jace smiled. "A meal doesn't have to be fancy. It's the company that makes it special." Liara nodded thoughtfully. "You make everything feel special. Even a small meal becomes something meaningful." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Around them, the station continued its busy rhythm, but inside this little corner, time seemed slower. Liara realized she had never experienced such calm, such genuine attention to another person. "You notice everything," she said softly. "Not just me, but the people around us. That's why I feel safe here." Jace shrugged. "I guess I just pay attention. Most people are too busy looking at what they want or what they fear. I try to see life as it is." Liara's eyes softened. "It's a gift. I've never had anyone see me like that." The next morning, the Solar Wrangler left Rendor Station. Lyra watched silently as Jace navigated through an asteroid belt. Giant rocks floated in the void, some streaked with crystalline veins that glimmered like tiny stars. "Careful," she whispered. "Those look dangerous." "They can be," Jace said, adjusting the ship's thrusters. "But danger isn't always about harm. Sometimes it's just an obstacle to learn from. Patience and attention get you through." Liara leaned closer to the viewport, marveling at the asteroids. Some glowed in pale blues and soft golds. "They're beautiful," she said softly. "I never thought obstacles could be—" Jace glanced at her, smiling. "Life throws rocks at everyone. The trick is noticing which ones to avoid and which ones to admire." She laughed quietly. "You have a way of seeing the world differently. It's comforting." As the ship exited the asteroid field, they approached a quiet golden planet. Its grasslands stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with shallow lakes that mirrored the twin moons overhead. "This place," Lyra breathed. "It's so peaceful." Jace guided the ship to a gentle landing near a stream. They stepped out, the soft grass under their feet almost tickling their senses after days in metal and dust. Jace unpacked a small meal, and they sat together on the grass. "You make every meal feel important," Liara said, smiling.
Jace laughed. "It's not the meal.
"It's sharing it." They ate slowly, talking about the planets they had seen and the people they had met. Liara realized she had never had a conversation so free of expectation, without pressure or formality. Jace listened without judgment, asked questions gently, and shared stories in ways that made her world feel larger, richer, and more alive. "I've never felt like this before," she said, eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Not even in the palace, not even among friends I trusted. You make me feel like I can breathe." Jace smiled softly. "That's what traveling does. Out here, no one cares about who you are on paper. You're just you. And sometimes, that's enough." They stayed under the twin moons, sharing stories until the night grew deep and the stars sparkled like tiny lanterns. Liara leaned slightly toward him. "No one has ever treated me like this," she whispered. "Not as a princess, not as a diplomat, just me." Jace reached out and gently tapped her hand. "I see the person in front of me. That's all I ever need." They fell asleep under the stars, the galaxy stretching endlessly above them. Liara dreamed of golden grasslands, twinkling stars, and a future that felt open, limitless. Jace dreamed of nebulae, quiet laughter, and a bond that had grown stronger with every shared meal, every story, every quiet moment. The next morning, the Solar Wrangler lifted off again, heading deeper into the uncharted reaches of space. Liara sat by the viewport, her hand brushing against the glass as the stars slid past in long glowing streaks. "Where will we go next?" she asked. "Somewhere new," Jace said with a grin. "Somewhere the galaxy hasn't been measured too carefully, where people live, work, and laugh. Places that show us life beyond maps and rules." Liara smiled, leaning back. "I like that. I want to see everything you see. Not as a princess, not as royalty, but as me. Jace nodded. That's all that matters. Seeing, understanding, sharing. Together they traveled across star trails, past nebulae and asteroid fields, visiting forgotten worlds, small colonies, and sparkling moons. Everywhere they went, they learned something new, about life, about kindness, about curiosity. And though the galaxy was vast, full of mystery and wonder, the most important discovery was simple. Two beings from different worlds, sharing meals, stories, and moments, could find connection anywhere, even in the endless stretch of space. As they soared among the stars, Liara realized she had found something she had never had before, a companion who saw her for who she truly was. And Jace realized he had found someone who could match his curiosity, his patience, and his love for the quiet magic of life. Together, they glided onward, knowing that the galaxy was big, strange, and unpredictable, but also full of beauty, friendship, and hope.